Welcome to the story of the disciples. This story is from chapters 4, 9, and 10 in the Gospel of Matthew. The lesson focus for grades 5 and 6 is God's call can mean making difficult decisions. The story of Jesus calling his 12 disciples is scattered and even incomplete in the Gospel of Matthew. There are several chapters between Jesus' invitation to different people, and we're not told anything about how 7 of the disciples are called. The call itself seems understated, but when Jesus says, "Follow me," people do. Peter and Andrew drop their nets and go with him. James and John leave their boat with their father to follow Jesus. When Jesus calls Matthew the tax collector from his booth, he too leaves everything to follow Jesus. We're left with the sense that all 12 responded quickly and left the life that they knew for an unknown life following Jesus. In Matthew 10:1, we learn what the disciples' mission is: to cast out unclean spirits and to cure those who are sick. It is a life of service that Jesus has called them to. 12 ordinary men, fishermen, tax collectors, brothers, leave their lives to follow the one who says simply, "Come, follow me." Jesus loves us, and Jesus invites us to follow him so that we might be a part of spreading God's love and grace in the world. We can follow Jesus. When we do, we become disciples and our lives change forever. We are called into a life of service, a life of love. The immediate reaction of Peter, Andrew, James, John, and Matthew might inspire us to examine our lives and make a commitment to participate in Jesus' ministry of teaching, preaching, and healing. It is a call to walk away from everything that gets in the way of God's work in the world. Sometimes answering that call can mean making difficult decisions. Jesus was about change. He regularly turned, and continues to turn, lives upside down. Life in the kingdom of heaven is radically different. Everything changes. The disciples in this story leave family and occupations. Those who follow Jesus are called from old, often comfortable ways of life into a new set of relationships and new priorities. The disciples had to give up their jobs, families, and lifestyles to follow Jesus. This couldn't have been easy. God's call can mean making difficult decisions. 5th and 6th graders are learning all about social hierarchies. Point out that Jesus chose to surround himself with people who weren't rich, important, powerful, or popular. Yet, these disciples were entrusted with the job of spreading the gospel. Invite kids to consider how much God trusts them too. Kids are making difficult decisions every day. They face peer pressure, parental expectations, and school responsibilities, to name a few. Help them realize that they can look to Jesus when they need to make these decisions. And if that doesn't work, they can come talk to you. After reading the disciples' story from their Spark Bibles, challenge them to find the same story in chapters 1 and 2 of Mark and chapter 5 of Luke. See if they can find similarities and differences between these gospel texts. They can make notes in the margins or use their Spark Bible stickers to mark the pages. You're helping to build biblical literacy in these kids when you have them find the same story in different Gospels. The Give It Up class activity may lead kids to feel guilty for not wanting to give up possessions or lifestyle. Try not to emphasize this feeling. Following Jesus is never easy, and no one does it perfectly. Empathize with kids and let them know that these decisions would be hard for you too. Kids will think of what the hardest parts of being a disciple were for the original 12 disciples during the activity called "If You Thought That Was Hard." Consider expanding this discussion to include what kids think would be most challenging today about becoming a disciple of Jesus. You'll find that they'll share some things in common, while other things they list will be unique to each kid. Giving things up to follow Jesus can be hard. Even talking about these things can be a challenge. Help your kids understand that God's call can mean making difficult decisions.